In 1851, Herman Melville published Moby Dick, a story about a massive white whale that bit the leg off a captain and sank a ship. For over a century, it was considered fiction, a terrifying exaggeration of the sperm whale's aggression. But Melville didn't know the half of it. Buried in the scorching sands of the Peruvian desert was a beast that makes Moby Dick look like a gentle giant. This creature possessed the largest biting teeth in the history of the animal kingdom, daggers of bone over a foot long and as thick as a man's arm. It was not a deep-diving squid eater. It was a surface-dwelling whale eater. This is Livyatan melvillei. It is the real-life monster that proves nature's imagination is far darker than any novel. The discovery of Livyatan is a relatively recent event that shook the foundations of marine paleontology. It took place in 2008 in the Pisco Formation of Peru. The Pisco Formation is a desolate, wind-swept desert on the Pacific coast. Today, it is dry and barren, looking more like Mars than Earth. But 12 million years ago, during the Miocene epoch, this was a thriving, nutrient-rich bay teeming with marine life. A team of researchers, including Klaas Post from the Natural History Museum Rotterdam, was surveying the area. The region is famous for its fossil whales, usually small, baleen-bearing ancestors of modern rorquals. But what Post found protruding from the rock was different. It was a skull, but it was not the flat, fragile skull of a filter feeder. It was robust, thick, and armed with teeth that defied logic. As the team excavated the 3-meter-long skull, the magnitude of the find became apparent. They had not found just another ancient whale. They had found the apex predator of the Miocene ocean. The preservation was remarkable, retaining the majority of the cranium, the lower jaws, and the teeth, allowing scientists to reconstruct the face of a nightmare with terrifying accuracy. Naming a creature of this magnitude requires a title that carries weight. Originally, the scientists named the genus Livyatan, referencing the biblical sea monster described in the book of Job as a creature that cannot be hooked or tamed. However, science has strict rules. It turned out that the name Livyatan had already been used in 1841 to describe a mastodon fossil, although that name had fallen out of use. In taxonomy, the first name takes priority. The killer whale needed a new moniker. The researchers chose the Hebrew spelling of the word Livyatan. For the species name, they paid homage to the man who understood the terror of the sperm whale better than anyone. They named it Livyatan melvillei, honoring Herman Melville. It was a poetic tribute, uniting the literary monster with the biological one. It suggests that while Melville wrote about a fictional demon, the ocean had already produced a real one millions of years prior. The defining feature of Livyatan, the trait that separates it from every other whale that has ever swum, is its dentition. Modern sperm whales have teeth only in their lower jaws. These teeth are relatively small and fit into sockets in the upper jaw. They are used primarily for grasping slippery squid in the deep dark. Livyatan was different. It possessed functional teeth in both the upper and lower jaws, and these were not small. The largest tooth found measured 36 centimeters, or roughly 1.2 feet in length. To put that in perspective, the teeth of a Tyrannosaurus rex are often compared to bananas. The teeth of Livyatan were like liter soda bottles. They are the largest biting teeth of any animal, excluding tusks like those of elephants or walruses, which are not used for feeding. The diameter of the teeth was over 10 centimeters. They were deeply rooted in the jawbone, indicating they were capable of withstanding immense physical stress. This animal did not just grasp prey. It sheared through bone and blubber. The wear patterns on the teeth suggest they interlocked perfectly, creating a shear force capable of tearing massive chunks of flesh from large prey items. It was a mouth designed for extreme violence. Like its modern cousin, the sperm whale, Livyatan possessed a massive basin on top of its skull. This basin housed the spermaceti organ. In modern whales, this organ is filled with a waxy oil used for echolocation and buoyancy control. It acts as a massive acoustic lens, focusing sound waves into a beam that can stun squid or detect prey miles away in the abyss. Livyatan undoubtedly used this organ for echolocation. The sensory capabilities of this predator would have been highly advanced, allowing it to detect other whales in the murky waters of the Miocene. However, some paleontologists have proposed a more violent function. The structure of the skull suggests that the spermaceti organ, supported by the massive junk bodies, connective tissue, could have been used as a battering ram. If Livyatan was hunting a medium-sized baleen whale, a head-on collision from a 50-ton animal moving at speed would be devastating. It could rupture internal organs or break the spine of the prey. While this theory is debated, the robustness of the skull supports the idea that the head was not just a sensory array, but a blunt force weapon. The body of Livyatan is estimated to have been between 13 and 17 meters long. This is comparable to a modern adult male sperm whale. However, its ecological role was completely different. Modern sperm whales are suction feeders that dive deep to hunt squid. They are ecologically comparable to giant vacuum cleaners. Livyatan was a macroraptorial sperm whale. This means it occupied the same ecological niche as the modern orca, or killer whale, but it was scaled up to the size of a bus. It hunted large prey. The Pisco Formation is full of fossils of medium-sized baleen whales called cetotherioids. These whales were about 5 to 8 meters long. To Livyatan, they were lunch. Using its powerful tail, Livyatan would ambush these smaller whales. The attack likely involved a combination of ramming and biting. With a mouth width of nearly 2 meters, it could bite a cetotherioid in half or crush its skull in a single motion. It was the only time in history that a whale hunted other whales as a primary food source on such a massive scale. Livyatan did not rule the Miocene Ocean alone. It shared the waters with another superstar of paleontology, Otodus Megalodon. The Megalodon was a massive shark, reaching lengths of up to 18 meters. Fossil evidence confirms that both superpredators lived in the Pisco Formation at the same time. This sets the stage for the greatest heavyweight rivalry in the history of life. Did they fight? It is a question that fascinates scientists and fans alike. In reality, nature tends to avoid direct conflict between apex predators because the risk of injury is too high. A bitten shark dies. A bitten whale dies. It is more likely that they practiced niche partitioning. Megalodon may have preferred warmer coastal waters, while Livyatan might have patrolled slightly cooler or deeper offshore waters. Or perhaps they targeted different prey species. However, conflict was inevitable. If a Livyatan killed a whale, the scent of blood would attract a Megalodon. Conversely, a Megalodon kill would attract a Livyatan. In these disputes over carcasses, intimidation would be the first weapon. But if push came to shove, it was a battle between the ultimate set of jaws and the ultimate intelligent battering ram. We also have to consider predation on the young. A baby Livyatan would be a perfect snack for a Megalodon, and a juvenile Megalodon would be an easy meal for a Livyatan. It was a war of attrition where the adults respected each other, but the young were fair game. Livyatan was not an anomaly. It was the culmination of a specific evolutionary lineage known as the macroraptorial sperm whales. Before Livyatan, there were animals like Zygophyseter and Brygmophyseter. These were smaller, reaching maybe 6 or 7 meters, but they possessed the same upper and lower teeth layout. They are often called the killer sperm whales. These animals were the wolves of the Miocene Sea, likely hunting in pods to take down larger prey. Livyatan represents the moment this lineage achieved gigantism. It took the wolf pack strategy and turned it into a Godzilla strategy. It became big enough to hunt alone. This lineage proves that the sperm whale body plan is incredibly versatile. It can produce deep-diving squid eaters, and it can produce surface-dwelling monster hunters. We know that modern sperm whales have the largest brains of any animal on Earth. They have complex languages, distinct cultures, and deep emotional bonds. It is highly probable that Livyatan was also intelligent. The ratio of brain size to body size in physeteroids, sperm whales, has always been high. However, its social structure might have been different. Modern sperm whales are social because they hunt squid and protect calves. Livyatan was a hyperpredator. In nature, most large hyperpredators like great white sharks or T-Rex tend to be solitary or live in small family groups, because a large pack requires too much food to sustain. A pod of 10 Livyatan would strip an ecosystem bare in weeks. Therefore, it is likely that Livyatan was solitary or traveled in very small units, perhaps a mother and calf. The ocean was simply not big enough to support large schools of these monsters. Being a mammal in the ocean has a cost: heat. Water sucks heat away from the body 25 times faster than air. Livyatan was endothermic, or warm-blooded. It maintained a high body temperature. This gave it a massive advantage over sharks and fish. It allowed Livyatan to have stamina. A shark like Megalodon was regionally endothermic, capable of warming its eyes and stomach. But it still relied on the ambient water temperature to some degree. Livyatan, wrapped in a thick layer of blubber, could operate at peak efficiency regardless of the water temperature. This high metabolism meant it had to eat constantly. A 50-ton warm-blooded predator is a furnace that needs fuel. This high caloric requirement was its greatest strength, giving it speed and power, but it would eventually become its greatest weakness. If Livyatan was so powerful, why is it gone? Why do we only have the squid-eating sperm whales today? The answer lies in the changing climate. Livyatan lived in the Miocene, a time of warm oceans, but around 5 million years ago, the Earth began to cool. The polar ice caps expanded. This cooling had a domino effect. The ocean currents changed. The breeding grounds of the small baleen whales, the cetotheriids, disappeared or shifted. The small whales died out, replaced by the ancestors of the modern giants, the blue whales and humpbacks. These new whales were huge, migratory, and lived in cold waters. Livyatan faced a double problem. First, its food source, the small whales, vanished. Second, the new food source, the giant whales, was too big to tackle easily and migrated to cold polar waters where Livyatan perhaps could not follow or hunt efficiently. Simultaneously, the Megalodon was facing the same crisis. Both super predators were specialized to hunt medium-sized whales in warm waters. When the menu changed, they couldn't adapt fast enough. The lineage of the killer sperm whales vanished. The lineage of the squid-eating sperm whales survived because the deep sea is a stable environment that is less affected by surface climate change. The vacuum cleaners survived. The warriors died. It is fascinating to note that the existence of Livyatan and Megalodon likely drove the evolution of modern whales. Why are blue whales so big? Why do they migrate so fast? One theory is that gigantism and high-speed migration were defense mechanisms. By becoming bigger than the predator could bite, and by moving faster than the predator could swim over long distances, the baleen whales escaped. Livyatan forced whales to become giants just to survive the Miocene slaughterhouse. We owe the majesty of the modern blue whale to the terror of the ancient Livyatan. Livyatan melvillei is more than just a fossil. It is a symbol of the terrifying potential of nature. It reminds us that the peaceful, krill-eating giants we see today are the survivors, the ones that escaped. The history of whales is written in blood. The discovery of Livyatan also vindicated Herman Melville. He wrote about a sperm whale that was an active, malicious hunter of men. While modern sperm whales are generally peaceful, unless provoked, Livyatan was exactly what Melville described, a creature with a taste for red meat and the weapons to harvest it. Livyatan stands as one of the most formidable predators ever to exist. It combined the intelligence of a mammal with the weaponry of a dinosaur and the size of a submarine. It ruled the Miocene seas with an iron jaw, challenging even the mighty Megalodon for the title of king. Its extinction teaches us a sobering lesson. Even the most powerful creatures are vulnerable to a changing world. When the climate shifts, teeth and size are not enough to save you. So, the next time you read Moby Dick, remember that the monster wasn't entirely a figment of the imagination. A few million years ago, the white whale was real. It had teeth the size of soda bottles, and it was hunting everything that moved. If you enjoyed this encounter with the true king of the whales, make sure to subscribe to Extinct Echoes. We dive deep into the past to bring the monsters back to the surface. And let us know in the comments. In a fight for the carcass of a whale, who do you think backs down first? The Megalodon or the Livyatan?